Hello, and welcome back to Trashbug Toy Reviews. Today we are, of course, looking at the little guy in front of us, the PNSO 2022 Acrocanthosaurus. His name is Fergus, of all things, which I think is very silly. But I am very excited to get into this guy, so let's hop right into the history and just talk a little bit about the dinosaur in question. So just for some general information about this guy, Acrocanthosaurus lived during the early Cretaceous period in North America, and this was before the continent was split by the Western Interior Seaway into the two mini-continents of Appalachia and Laramidia. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, I'd highly recommend the podcast, The Common Descent. I can link that down below, but if you prefer video contents, PBS Ian's also has a really good little video about that, and I'll again link that down below if you're interested in reading up a little bit more. It's a really cool part of history, especially with North America in general, just to see sort of how the landmass has changed and how that's affected the ecosystems. But this guy was in North America before any of that happened, and he was by far the largest predator of his ecosystem. He lived alongside dinosaurs like Deinonychus and Tenontosaurus, whom he probably preyed on. And this was around 110 million years ago or so. For those that care, it's during the Aptian to Abian period. And I'm hoping I pronounced those right because I'm just getting that information from Wikipedia. It's not usually something I care too much about. Just for some more general information about this guy, he is about 36 to 38 feet long. And for this model, it measures about 12.5 inches long, which puts it perfectly in that 1 to 35 scale. He is about 4 inches tall, which would round him about to 12 to 13 feet tall, which not super important, but I just think it's a really cool piece of information to think about just how big this guy was, and the fact that he was not even close to the biggest dinosaur, or biggest theropod rather, of all time. You know, T-Rex, again, Carcharodontosaurus. But let's hop right into the review now, because I have said my piece about this guy, and I am so excited. Acrocanthosaurus is one of my favorite dinosaurs of all time, and I can't believe we finally have a real definitive model of this guy in front of us. Let's hop right into it. So for those new to the channel, I look at 3 core categories of figures when I'm reviewing them. I'm looking at the sculpt and detail on them, I'm looking at the paint and color applications, and I'm looking at either the articulation or the sculpt, just depending on the type of figure that I'm looking at. Other things might play a factor, like what accessories they come with, the construction of the figure, etc. But those are the core categories that I'm looking at, and then I'm gonna do just a little bit of math at the end to get a final grade for them, because I love definitive numbers. Anyways, right on into the sculpt. So taking a look at the sculpt of this guy, let's just start at the head, and you'll see the teeth on this guy are absolutely beautifully detailed and sculpted out. There is almost no blemishing on here, save for maybe the very tip, but I kind of like the gnarly look that it gives it. I cannot really capture it super well on camera, but in person you can see it a lot better. Looking inside, you can see that the tongue is sculpted out. You have some of the back of the mouth and the roof of the mouth details. It's pretty incredible how much detail PNSO manages to get into these guys. And I'm so glad that they put this much effort into like even just the mouths of them. Because then, you know, with these articulated jaws, whether you pose it open or closed or half open or half closed, it just looks absolutely beautiful. Acrocanthosaurus had this little crest on its head, and you can see that they've captured it perfectly in the sculpting. Its eye and skin detail is all just absolutely breathtaking. Taking a look here underneath, you see a lot of the skin wrinkling going on under the neck and under the jaws. Again, just adding to the beautiful realism of this animal. And looking at the neck here, you can see where the skin is kind of tugging on its musculature. One of the theories with the high spines on its back is that it's an attachment point for muscles. And I really like how much effort PNSO has put into this. You can just see, looking at it from the top down, just how bulky its neck looks. It just looks like it has all these muscle attachments to just give it this absolutely killer bite. And just going down again, you can just see all these little muscle ridges on here. It's just absolutely beautiful. I can't say it enough. And I love the spines that they added. You know, how much of that is realistic, I don't know. Again, I love this animal, but I'm not like a paleontologist. But I just absolutely love the effect that it gives. It just looks like a truly menacing yet real animal. Just going back here to the jaws again a little bit, you can see it's got the rough scales on the front, which if I'm not mistaken is a strong indication by the fossils now with a lot of theropods that they had something like this. Again, their jaws are their biggest weapon, so it makes sense that their heads would be a little armored. Looking at its jaws as well, you'll see it has this kind of crookedness to its jaws, which is one of the reasons that I like it, because again, it just looks so cool and so menacing, yet on a real animal. I don't know how much has been discussed about it in literature, but it definitely looks like a space to just hook things in and keep them held in there. Just an absolutely beautiful predator. Moving down here to the arms, you can see they've wonderfully captured the claws on the hands, which is a big factor with these Acrocanthosaurs and Carcharodontosaurs in general. Unlike Tyrannosaurs, which obviously had the reduced forelimbs, these guys had these big muscular claws that are thought to have played a factor in hunting and in combat. It's really cool to see how detailed they are. Underneath, you just see more of that skin wrinkling, just again emphasizing the bulk and size of this guy, with the skin just resting right over the musculature. The legs are interesting because the size of the body and the size of its head almost make the legs look small, but when you account for the fact that most of the top of this animal is just this fatty musculature ridge, they are very proportional. But it's just a neat little feature that I think is so cool about Acrocanthosaurus, especially when you have things like Spinosaurus that did have those highly reduced legs, just to see that, you know, he wasn't the only one doing stuff like that. Going down the tail here, again, just all this beautiful, beautiful skin detail. It kind of smooths out towards the end, which would probably be my only criticism of the sculpt. But it's still just so well done over most of it. Moving down here to the legs, again, you can just see all the muscle packed into these thick, thick calves. And then just going down to these really powerful, beautifully detailed feet. Just in terms of sculpt and detail, this Acrocanthosaurus is just phenomenal. I can't say enough about how beautiful this guy is. Looking at it from the top again, just look at all of this muscular body. Oh, it's so nice. This guy, I am definitely giving a 5 to this though. I can't see anything that I don't like on this guy. And everything looking at pictures and reconstructions and skeletals of the actual animal, it just looks like they completely nailed it. So let's move on to the color. Looking here at the coloration and the paint applications, you can see a lot of the PNSO figures do this striping effect with like the earthy, more natural tones, but I just love how unique it looks on the Acrocanthosaurus. They really took a more naturalistic and, again, really earthy look to this figure. It's all like beige and browns, and it's just darker browns laid over. And I love this spotting effect that they have over the back. It just brings out more of the color, brings out more of the beautiful, beautiful sculpt, and just shows how incredible this animal would have looked in real life. You can see this is also counteracted by the head, which if we take a closer look here, is kind of like an ashy gray charcoal black on the front. It's so cool. We have a little bit of washing or dry brushing going on just to bring out the details in there. But it's nothing like some of the older figures that really didn't have it on there that well. It's just, you can really see how PNSO has perfected their craft over time. I feel like every model we get is just better and better. Going all the way down, I love the counter shading here. He's got a really light, kind of grayish beigeish stomach, and then the nice brownish on the back. Going all the way down to the tail, you see these beautiful stripes. Oh, just absolutely beautiful. And this pretty much perfectly matches the promo images that we got. Just an absolutely beautiful piece. I can't say that enough. I probably sound like a robot just constantly repeating the same thing, but these guys are just incredible, especially Acrocanthosaurus. I love this paint. I can't see anything about it that I don't like. Looking in the mouth too, you even see it's got this beautiful pink, and they added a bit more of a glossiness to give it more of a wet look. It's just wonderful. If I have any complaints, it would just be the claws. You can see here on the forelimbs and on the hind limbs, none of the nails are painted, which isn't really a big deal. I think that the dark look to them works, but it's just, if there's anything I could complain about, it would just be that. I'm still going to be giving this guy a 5 though, because let me just tell you that on any shelf, this is just absolutely wonderful piece, and it stands out even against the other PNSO figures. I love the paint jobs that they have, but I love when they do something like this, where it's similar tones, but they just do it in such a more unique way. Finally, taking a look at one of the last 3 of the major categories, the posing and articulation. Of course, for articulation for this guy, we just have the jaw, but for any theropod figure, this just seems like an essential part. You know, gotta decide if you're gonna pose it with its mouth resting in the closed position, or if he's gonna be having his mouth open to show off those beautiful teeth. I like to have both because Acrocanthosaurus has such a cool skull. Love to show off both sides of it. As far as the general pose, it really looks like it's just walking around like a riverbed or something. Not in an active hunting stance, but also not just in a really neutral stance. It's a really, really nice pose. When I first got it, I was scared that it had some warping because if I pose it here, you can kind of see it has its foot stepped right under its body, and then the back foot is stepping away. I like it though because, of course, it isn't warping of any kind. It is just the dinosaur stepping where its center of mass is. It's so cool. It gives it a lot of life with nothing like crazy going on. It's just so much life to this animal. It looks like a real animal that you just miniaturized and froze in time. As far as articulation or posing, I'm definitely going to be giving this one a 5. Just as far as like the statue kind of figure, there is nothing more that I could want. You know, I like a lot of these neutral poses where they're in movement, there's something going on to them, but they're not like actively in this crazy stance. I think a lot of the issue I have with some figures like Pepo, they try to get them in these active stances, and sometimes it's so cool, and then sometimes we end up with what happened to the Giganotosaurus, which anyone that collects dinosaur toys I'm sure has strong opinions on that. I, for one, am not a big fan. I do not have that figure, and I do not plan on picking it up. This guy, on the other hand, beautiful. And even their Acrocanthosaurus is cool. But this isn't a Pepo video, so let's move on with the review. Taking a look here at some of the accessories that it comes with though, PNSO with a lot of the newer models has been coming with these display stands, which are a lifesaver for figures like Fergus, where the pose is so cool, but it is unfortunately going to lend itself to warping over time. This is a pretty heavy figure standing on 2 fairly small legs. A couple of my other figures already have had warping issues, like, you know, the Therizinosaurus I just got for Christmas a couple weeks ago, not even like 2 weeks ago at this point, and he already can't stand without his stand, which is absolutely wild to me how fast these warp, but it makes me very happy that they included the stands because, you know, these are figures where you'd be thrilled with them right out of the box, and then after a week they're falling over on your shelf. Not with these, so that is super cool. In addition, you also get these posters, and a lot of people have gotten these from the PNSO figures nowadays, and there's definitely mixed opinions on them. I am of the opinion that they're cool, but I just, as someone who likes their, I don't know how to put this without sounding like a weenie, but like, I really like my clean art, so having them folded up in the boxes just really ruins it for me, and it's a little upsetting because, especially looking here at this poster, this is a beautiful poster of an Acrocanthosaurus. I would absolutely love to hang this up on my wall, but it is all wrinkled and looks like crap because of the folds. I really wish that PNSO would roll these up in the boxes and just stick them in as a little poster roll. I think that would honestly just completely do away with any issues I could have with any of these, because I would love to display these, but they look like crap, so it makes me really sad. In addition to the poster, it also comes with this little booklet. Just to quickly go through it, you can see we've got a couple pictures of the Acrocanthosaurus Fergus, and just some more art of the progress of putting this thing together. So pretty cool, but nothing crazy. These are just kind of getting tossed in a box for me. I'm probably not going to be digging through these too hard. To show his scaling, again, this guy is a 1 to 35th scale model, so I'm going to compare him against a couple of the PNSO figures as well that are in that same scale range. The first one, of course, is going to be the Winter Wilson, which is probably a must with this guy. Next, we're going to just move on to the Safari T-Rex. This is the Feather T-Rex released a few years ago. I think this is one that a lot of people have, so I hope that this helps with sort of getting a sense of scaling if you're curious about that. Next, we're going to move on to the PNSO Torosaurus, which is new to this year. Again, absolutely beautiful figure, and you can just see how big the Torosaurus is compared to this. Of course, Acrocanthosaurus lived before it, so they'd never see each other in person, but again, just a cool size comparison. Moving right on to the PNSO Acrocanthosaurus, and you can see again what I was talking about earlier with the very crazy stances that the Papo figures like to get themselves into. The Acrocanthosaurus I think is really cool, but some of them just get absolutely wacky. Here it is next to the Safari Giganotosaurus, another figure that I think a lot of people will have, and just showing you next to one of his Carcharodontosaurid brothers. Next we have him next to the Beast of the Mesozoic Nasutoceratops. And this is just to show you a scale sense if you have one of the Beasts of the Mesozoic figures and you want to just get more dinosaur figures, because this guy is awesome. Of course, they're nowhere close to in scale, but again, just to get a general sense of sizing. So just to round out the review, with a 5 in all 3 categories, Mr. Acrocanthosaurus is taking home a 5 for this final score. Couldn't be happier with that. Of course, this is one of my favorite dinosaurs, so I'm sure I'm not biased at all. You can see he is just absolutely stunning. I couldn't be more thrilled to have this guy in my collection, and I'm so happy we finally have a real definitive Acrocanthosaurus. There was a rumor for a long time that PNSO was thinking of releasing this guy, and nobody was happier to hear that it was true than me, I'm sure. So just to wrap up, thank you guys so much for checking this guy out. I know I've already said it 40,000 times in this video, but Acrocanthosaurus, one of my favorite dinosaurs of all time. Can't believe we finally have this definitive version from PNSO. I couldn't be happier, and he's so cool next to all the other PNSO figures on my shelf. Next time we're going to be taking a look at the Sideswipe figure from Studio Series. It is the Revenge of the Fallen version. Super excited to get into it. My best friend gave it to me for Christmas, and I've been in love with the figure ever since. Sideswipe did not stand out to me at all in the movie, but that is a whole nother story for that film. But the figure itself is just incredible. So next time we'll be taking a look at that guy. Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe if you like the feed. If you want to see any other figures in particular, of course, just let me know. If you want to check out more toy content, check out my Instagram at @AtrashBugToys. It's the same thing as this YouTube, but you can also follow the link tree if you want the direct link. You can check out the podcast. This month we have a ton of nice little goodies. We've already released our Bats episode, and Shin Ultraman I think will be out at the point that this comes out. Might even be coming out the same day for all I know at this point. And then we're going to wrap up this month with The Cleanse, which was a surprisingly great film. So check that out if you like podcasts, monster movie stuff, and check out my next videos. Thank you so much, and take care.